Hello, it's Joe here from Northern Tempest with a report about the 2024 UK Grand Melee. And this is the report I've been waiting to give you for a long time because finally I won it. So after many attempts of trying, after many years of playing Saga, I managed to get lucky on this occasion and win the Grand Melee. So I'll give you a bit of background and talk about my warband in this one and how some of the games went, how it turned out in the end. So this was the Grand Melee being held in 2024 in Nottingham, the home city of wargaming, at the British Historical Game Society BritCon show. Held in the University of Nottingham. It's a show with lots of traders there, lots of other games being played, lots of participation games, so lots going on, great venue. They even had their own beers there, so fantastic venue for the event, and the Saga Grand Melee is held there for the first time, which is brilliant. So we've got 6 different scenarios there. We've got a Swiss chess system for organising the matchups with a random matchup for the first time. So this year it's Age of Darkness, which is Age of Invasions and Age of Vikings, plus the Old Friends, New Enemies warbands were the options for this. So we had quite a lot of different factions to choose from, and had to weigh up which one to go with. But for myself, for this one, I'm trying a warband which I had never used at a tournament before, and that was Cymry Welsh. So I've never used a Welsh board for any kind of Welsh faction at a tournament before. We know they are very strong, and they've had a lot of tournament success in the UK, but I hadn't tried, so I wanted to give them a go. Cymry Welsh are a little bit different to your normal Age of Vikings Welsh. The difference is a little bit more of a fighting faction, the Cymry Welsh. They're the early Welsh. They're kind of like the Age of Invasions period, Age of Arthur. So we've got these early Welsh kingdoms emerging. Typically, they don't have a lot of armour in their warbands. There's still lots of warriors armed with javelins, but your Hearthguard are not armed with javelins, and your Warlord is not armed with javelin, and you get some different options for the mercenaries. Now, I thought this was kind of interesting here because the scenarios that we're playing, there were quite a few where you need to guard objectives, and Welsh are very good at running away, not so good at standing still and holding objectives. So I thought I'd give them a go for this, the Cymry Welsh, because it meant that I could pick some mercenaries that could help me out with that, and also plug the gaps in the things of Welsh that can't do so well. So my 6-point list for the Cymry Welsh, I took 3 points of warriors armed with javelins. Now, usually I played these as a unit of 7 armed with javelins, and a unit of 9 armed with javelins, and then a unit of 8 armed with javelins, and also they had a banner in that unit of 8 as well. So that's the first 3 points. Then I had a point of Levy armed with slings, really useful to get that ranged attack. And then the Warlord himself is just armed with a hand weapon, no other options for him. And then I've got 2 points left. I went for 2 mercenary options, which was a bit of a risk, because I knew the Javelin Warriors are very strong, but I wanted to try out some mercenaries. They were a bit more interesting to the list, really, so I want to give them a go. 1 point was the Roman Deserters. They're really solid, strong, defensive mercenary unit. So they get +1 to all of their saving throws, whether it's melee or from shooting attacks, +1 to the saving throw. So that's really useful, makes them very survivable. And they also get to do a free shooting attack once per turn. So other than that, they're like normal warriors. But that bonus to their defensive dice, that's what really counts, because it means that they can be quite solid in the middle of my line, kind of hold the place. People don't want to charge them because they defend so well, and I can hide my other warriors behind them if needed. So that was a good choice, I think. Now, there was another choice I took for a mercenary unit, and they were the Sea Wolves. Now, they were a bit more risky because the Sea Wolves are a bit of an unusual choice for a mercenary unit. They're not the strongest, but they have some quite good abilities there. They are able to do a move after the deployment before the first turn. So that, I thought, would be really useful to get me moving forward. I don't have any cavalry in this list, and so the Sea Wolves were providing me with a unit that could move very fast, because they're going to move before the first turn even takes place. They have determination, so then they can move again for free. I don't need to give them a dice to move, so that was going to be quite useful. And then the special ability was that if in a melee they have a higher armour than their opponent, they can get 4 more dice, either attack dice or defence dice. So I thought that was kind of better than a Saga ability, because of course no dice needed to use that, and that was really aiming at enemy units of levy, or enemy units of warriors mounted with javelins or comp bows, because they're going to have lower army than my armour 4 sea wolves. So I thought I could get the early charge on some units of enemy levy, units of squishy enemy cavalry, get those extra dice, really take them out early, and also use that Welsh taunt ability, really useful to make an enemy charge me. If I can move up my sea wolves with their move before the game starts, and then another move themselves, I can be L forward right in my opponent's face, right at the very start, in the very first turn, and I can use taunt to bring their levy out of hard cover to charge me. I'm getting extra dice. I'm going to batter their levy right at the start of the game. So that was the plan, to take out the enemy's units early on. Now, they were a bit of a disaster, I have to say, the Seawolves in that. They never really performed in any of the games, the Seawolves. I'll get onto that a little bit later on. What they did provide me with, because they've got that determination, means that even when they were battered and down to like a couple of guys left, I've still got determination to move them away, to keep them safe so they don't die out. And also I've got my other Welsh units with javelins, so that often the Seawolves were the ones taking the first attack from the enemy, and I was able to follow that up with my warrior javelins to kind of attack the unit that's just attacked the Seawolves. So in a roundabout way, they did the job of mercenaries by dying and allowing my core troops to get extra points and kill the enemy, getting them into a place that I needed them. So as a bait unit, the Seawolves worked kind of well. So overall, of course, I was pretty successful in the games. So I'll go through those and talk about what happened in game by game and my opponent's units. So the first game was Clash of Warbands. Most of the scenarios in the tournament pack taken from the Studio Tomahawks tournament pack, with some minor changes in them. So the Clash of Warbands, which is slightly different to the standard Clash of Warlords. And it's a random draw for the first opponent. So hopefully in that, I was hoping to get an easy opponent, maybe someone not so experienced, so I could get an early win in this competition. And I see who I'm drawn against, and it's Gabor, who is a Hungarian player, who is a brilliant Saga player, who I've encountered once before at the Saga World Cup, and he beat me. He beat my Spanish in that game, so I knew he was a good player. And here he is with Pagan Russ this time, which I knew was going to be a tough clash for my Cymry Welsh. And Gabor is a master painter and modeller as well. He had this beautiful Pagan Russ warband of all female miniatures, loads of shield maidens, unusual different female miniatures he put together for it. Just fantastic looking, and he actually won Best Painted for the tournament for that warband as well. It was a great looking warband. Really about what the spirit of Saga is about, I think, taking something with a bit of a historical feel to it, but giving it your own twist and doing it in your own way, not really sticking to the historical record accurately, but doing it in your own way with a historical feel. So that's what Gabor had done, this all-female Pagan Russ warband. So in his list, he had a unit of 6 Hearthguard, I think, another unit of 8 warriors hand weapons, another unit of 8 warriors hand weapons, 2 units of 6 warriors, I think, warlord on foot, and then Jarl Sigvaldi, or rather Jarl Sigvaldi's daughter in this case. So that was his list. So we set up the terrain, managed to get a piece of hard cover in the middle. So I think I managed to get my levy into that in the middle, so I could take some shots at him. He's of course limiting the range of my shots with his Pagan Russ abilities while he closes in on me, but look, the javelins are okay for that. So I've got my Welsh defensive evasive moves on our land, and evade and guerrilla, of course, so I can shoot at him and dodge out of the way. So he's moving up. In the first few turns, that was me kind of taking extra shots at him, dodging out of the way where I could to try and avoid the combat as much as possible. Did get a few early combats, but I was getting ahead, getting slightly better with really as I could dodge out of the way and sort of slowly knock out some of his models as he got closer. I was very wary of Jarl Sigvaldi's rules, because I know once he builds up those Fury tokens, he is all powerful and can't be stopped. So I was really careful not to shoot Jarl Sigvaldi at all. So hopefully those tokens would wear down a little bit. But I saw an opportunity there. So Sigvaldi in the hard cover, with just one Fury token was on, so had resilience and determination. And I thought, if I don't take him out now, he's going to build up extra Fury tokens and be unstoppable once he gets the +1 armor and +1 to his dice rolls. He's going to just destroy me there. So I had an opportunity. He was in the hard cover, so used a bit of the Welsh magic taunt to taunt Sigvaldi out to clash into my Roman deserters. So Sigvaldi came out, clashed into the Roman deserters. I lost that combat and had to retreat. That left Sigvaldi out in the open. That means I could leather the shots into Sigvaldi again and again until I could whittle him down. Still, that didn't kill him, so I had to send in a unit of my 9 warriors with a charge in there, using the War Dance ability to reduce his effect to his closing ranks. I managed to kill him off there. But Gabor wasn't letting me get away with that. He sent in his unit of fresh warriors there to batter my unit of warriors who just killed Sigvaldi, and really he claimed a lot of points back, so I was ahead on points, but he really pressed the attack there to crush one of my units and claimed a lot of points back. So a really good moves later on from him. Pulled it back a bit, and we looked at the points at the end of the game, and it was actually a draw. I was 2 massacre points ahead of him, and you need 3, 4 to get the win in this. So his good moves later on resulted in a draw rather than the loss. So I'm still yet to beat Gabor. Maybe next time. So that was the first game. The next game was the capture scenario. So this is the scenario where there's 3 objectives in the middle, and you're trying to get your units nearby to capture them. You can contest them to stop your enemy scoring them, but you've got to your mercenary units can score the objectives in this one. And a draw against Rob. He had Normans, and I was feeling pretty good against Normans because they have lots of mounted troops, which usually I can dodge out of the way of, and I can shoot his mounted troops. So I thought I'd do all right against them. Let's see. But then when he deployed, he had a lot of foot units, which I wasn't quite expecting, and they proved a lot harder to kill than the normal mounted Normans. So he had a warlord on foot. He had 5 Hearthguard on foot, which I'd completely forgotten they could actually take with Normans. So I had to check it in the book. But yeah, Normans Hearthguard on foot. So 5 Hearthguard on foot. Then there was 5 mounted Hearthguard. He had his unit of 12 levy bows, you see in every Norman list, 10 mounted warriors with javelins, and 10 foot warriors. So a pretty good list from there for Rob for holding objectives. So he moved in first turn and moved close to the objectives. I noticed that his unit of 5 mounted Hearthguard were not too far away, so I did some double moving in my turn to get one of my javelin units up, and really shot at that unit. Of course, vulnerable, the mounted Hearthguard, so I managed to take out lots of them. Marched my Roman deserters up confidently in the middle of the table, thinking you can never kill them because they're so hard to kill. So to take the central objective with a unit of my javelin warriors behind, my levy covering one of the objectives, but he sent his big unit of warriors onto that objective. Although I was shooting them with my levy, it wasn't enough damage. Sent the sea wolves in, they weren't doing enough damage either, so he was still holding that objective for quite a long time. The other objective on my right, he had his foot Hearthguard going for that, and his warlord, and I had one of my warlord and one of my javelin units going for that. So that was contested. No one was scoring that. So Rob was actually ahead on points, really. And it was because quite a few contested objectives. But I could see that at the end of it, I was going to get more because my position. It looked like I was going to score more. And he pulled out an amazing move out because I had this unit of Roman deserters on the middle objective. I was really confident he was not going to beat them, but he loaded up his mounted warriors with the javelins, using the Norman impact to do an extra dice, charged them into my my Roman deserters. I closed ranks, thinking I'd defend this easily, but he's got loads of extra dice, this 10-man warrior unit, and he's re-rolling the failures. So actually, he hit me loads of times. Now I've closed ranks with these Roman deserters, so I'm saving on 3s in melee, but I rolled a whole heap of 1s and 2s, and he wiped the unit, which is very rare to do. He wiped out the unit, and he was holding this middle objective and scoring the points for that. So luckily, I had to I had my foot javelin warriors nearby. They can move in and start shooting the mounted warriors. So eventually, I was able to whittle them down and score that one. And my warriors on the left flank were able to carry on shooting, whittle down his unit of foot warriors. And then on my right flank, lots of javelins shooting at his foot half guard, and slowly took them down, turn on turn, slowly, until he didn't have much on that side. Of course, he was trying to charge me back, but I kept on evading and dodging out of the way. So eventually, by the end of the game, I'd managed to clock up the extra points to beat him. But yeah, again, it seemed fairly close until the end. So the next match was Conquest. This is another one of the games with 3 objectives in the middle, but this one is where really you're scoring massacre points, and the points you score for being near to the objectives are added onto the massacre points. So this time, mercenary units can't score, but of course they can kill the enemy and to get some massacre points. So in this Conquest game, I drew against Austin. He was using a unit of Franks for his warband. He had Warlord on foot. He had the Bishop as a mercenary, and he also had the Molossians, the dogs, mercenary. And then he had put the rest of his points into warriors. So he had, let's see, I think a unit of 10 warriors, another unit of 10 warriors, and then a unit of 12 warriors, all on foot. So I looked at all these units and I thought I'm going to win this easy, because he didn't have any ranged attacks to shoot me, and he's got those 4 kind of combat units, and I thought, well, I'll be able to dodge those out of the way, really, so I should be all right. So I was feeling fairly confident, but it was really misplaced confidence, because Austin was very good with the Franks. He had his Bishop nearby, who can give the extra defense dice to some of his units. So he was giving extra defense dice to some of his warrior units. Then, of course, he had the Mund ability on the Franks board to cancel some of my shooting dice. And if he's got a 6 on that, he can cancel 6 of my shooting dice. So when my levy would shoot one of his units, he can use 6 on Mund, all my shooting dice gone. And then if I try and shoot again, of course, he's got extra defense dice from his Bishop. So actually, my shooting was doing nothing to him. I clustered my whole warband around one of the objectives, really, to score extra points on that one. And to try and keep my distance from him. But he was still manoeuvring round. He was scoring points. He was moving in, and of course he got his Molossians in. Killed my sea wolves. The dogs beat the wolves, and and then he could follow up his attacks with his big warrior units. Really, I was doing the best I could with my warrior units to evade his charges where I could, shoot him where he moved in, but was really not doing much damage. So eventually, really trying to play it safe and trying to evade him, I did just about enough damage on him to get a draw, and I was lucky to get that draw. If we played much longer, Austin would have crushed me there. So that was the result of that one. Yeah, so I felt quite lucky to get that draw. Only just got it. So that was my first 3 games, the first day. So I'd got 2 draws and a win on the first day. So that, I was thinking, kind of, that's not really enough to win the event now, because 2 draws and a win. I'm thinking, right, well, I'm not going to win the event, and it's not enough points really. So I'll come back day 2, enjoy the games, hopefully place high, but can't imagine myself winning. And so started day 2 and had to see who I'd draw to play against at the start of day 2. And it was going to be the advanced scenario. This is the scenario with 5 different objectives. Now, mercenaries can't score points for the objectives in this case, but it is all about the points. If you can capture the objectives in your opponent's half, they're worth 6 points. The ones in your half are worth 2, and the one in the middle is worth 3. So in this scenario, I discovered I'd drawn against Chris, Northern Tempest Chris, who had played a lot of practice games against, so we did have a bit of a chuckle because we'd often in the past drawn against each other in tournament games, and sometimes he wins and sometimes I'd win, and we knew this was going to be a hard work. And really, I did not feel confident about this scenario at all because I was playing a warband with 2 mercenary units who couldn't capture objectives, and it's the scenario with 5 objectives. This was always going to be my worst one, really. And I'm against Chris's Scots, who are fantastic at holding objectives. He had this warband, a brilliant defensive warband, and I knew how good he was with Scots as well from the practice games. So I thought this is going to be really, really tough. So in this this game, let's see, Chris's list for the Scots. He had his Warlord on foot, then a personal champion who works really well with Scots. Then he had a unit of levy, but he'd swapped out half of the levy for more warriors, so actually just had a unit of 6 levy with bows, and then the rest he put into warriors. So he had a unit of 10 warriors, another unit of 10 warriors, a unit of 8 warriors, and another unit of 8 warriors. So he's got those 4 units of warriors, personal champion, and a few levy bows who stood right at the back just to generate a dice, plus his ward. So he's got a lot of units there to hold the objectives, and he does what Scots do and slowly marched up towards the objectives. Lots of his defensive abilities on. I could try and move forward to get the objectives. Now, because I couldn't have as many units to hold objectives, I deployed my warband a little bit differently. I had a unit of 4 warriors and a unit of 6 warriors just to get the extra units there to hold objectives. So in the centre, my Roman deserters went there with the unit of 4 warriors. So basically, the Roman deserters could stand the objective, and I could heap my 4 warriors hidden behind just to score the points on it, because they're still generating Saga dice. They're still going to hold that objective. So I hold both of mine, moved up on my turn, loading up the Welsh board, of course, with my defensive abilities, my evade. The evade ability, of course, the one that if the enemy shoots at me or charges me, I can move before they do their shoot or charge. I used that ability probably every turn of every game I played, and there was always dice on there because it's so good. It's such a brilliant ability. Evade, dodge the enemy's attacks, really makes the enemy work hard to get you into combat or to shoot you. And I knew Scots, although he didn't have much shooting on the list, I knew he'd use that reach ability to move near me, hold the objectives, and use reach to shoot at me. So really had to be careful of the Scots here. But as he walked up to me, I was able to load up the shots into him. Lots of shooting, the javelins and my levy slingers, leathering in the shots to him. Of course, Scots has got good defensive abilities. He always got that hold on Bayon for extra defense dice. Chris used to put extra dice in the combat bonus, so he's defending them. So really, he was defending a lot of attacks. But I was kind of getting a slightly lucky with my shots on him. So only like just slightly better than normal average, I'd say. But it kind of built up over time. I was knocking out some of his models, so that was pretty good. And of course, he had to come and charge me sooner or later. I had my unit of levy with bows on one of the objectives to my left, and I'd shot so many times I ended up with 2 fatigues on it. Now Chris has used Welsh a lot before, so he knows if I've got 2 fatigues on, if he charges me and I try and evade, he can cancel that evade and I will not be able to get out of the way. And so he'll be able to charge me, and with the Scots board loaded up, he can easily wipe out a unit of levy in one combat. So I was really wary of that. So he moved. He had the two fatigues on from shooting him. I thought he was going to use the fatigues to raise his armour. He didn't. He'd left them on because that was his plan. So he marched up this big unit coming in to kill my levy. I used the guerrilla ability to shoot at him, and then he had another puzzle because he can cancel that shot, but then I can evade him when he charges me. Or he could raise his armor, but then I can still evade him, and he can short my move, but I could still be able to get away. So he chose to leave them on, and I did my guerrilla shot, and I got really lucky with it and killed 4 of his warriors from this one shot from the guerrilla. So he was fuming. So sorry about that, Chris. It was good though. And then of course he charged. I tried to evade. He cancels my evade by taking 2 fatigues off. But now I've killed 4 of his warriors. So the warrior unit that was going to be really big hitting me they've only got they've got a few models in there. I think there were perhaps five guys in, so he couldn't actually get all the dice that he wanted to with his Scots abilities. He could double his dice. He's only going up to 10 though, rather than the full size unit. He would have been going up to 20 odd dice. So yeah, so he hit the levy unit, and I managed to get quite a few saves as well. So only 4 levy died. So I still had this 8-man levy unit there, who could, of course, on my turn, shoot his unit until he'd lost the Saga dice, and then shoot his other unit he had holding on to his objective. I could get onto scoring his objective, and that meant big points, 6 points. He wasn't able to get onto my objectives, but he was pushing back on the centre. He got that centre objective, and in his the objective on the right side in his, I'd kind of moved up to that because I realised if I was just defending mine, he was going to march on me. So I really tried to get onto that objective. So luckily I can use sneaky Welsh abilities to move on to stop him scoring the objective, and then if he tries to charge me, I can use evade to dodge out of the way, or our land to dodge out of the way. So I was doing that quite a bit. He had his let's see, his levy at the back there just to generate Saga dice, but even a 6-man levy unit with a diversionary volley can actually shoot quite well, and so they were whisked away. So I had to do something about them. So I sent my wheat sea wolves over. They got shot up pretty bad, but I think in the end the remaining sea wolves managed to crash into those levy and take out enough to take his Sarg dice. And my warrior javelin units could shoot out his units and enough to take away his Sarg dice. And in the end, I was scoring more points and I managed to take the win from him. So I was really pleased about that, because that was a tough game against Chris's Scots, and I managed to win. So I knew Scots were a tough matchup, and I knew Chris was a good player, so I was really pleased that win. Went to the next game, and against another Scot player, another really good Scot player. It's Ian Mackay, who's a real veteran Saga player. I've played him quite a few times. He's a really good player. He's got Scot warband as well. The mission is desacralization, so the variation. It's not the desecration from Book of Battles. It's the slight variation in the Studio Tomahawk pack. So again, it's got that theme of trying to destroy the enemy's objective markers. An unusual terrain placement in this, though, in that you can put 2 pieces down, but your small piece, if you put a small piece down, it's got to go more than L from any table edge. So I got to place it first, and I could put my small piece in the middle, and that meant Ian couldn't place his because he couldn't go more than L from any table edge and more than M from my piece. So he didn't get to place two terrain pieces down. He just put one steep hill on the edge, and I put a wood on the edge, and I had this hard cover in the middle. So I could get my levy into this hard cover to start shooting him. So the list Ian had with his Scots, he had a warlord. He also had the personal champion. He had a unit of 8 Hearthguard, a unit of 8 warriors, another unit of 8 warriors, another unit of 8 warriors. So fairly straightforward list from Ian. He knew that he can use that reach ability, and of course, because the personal champion is loyal, he gets to shoot with the reach as well. So this is going to be devastating if they get up close to me. But I was able to get into the cover quite well there. I've got the hard cover in the middle. I've got my wood. I can keep my Roman deserters in there, and my javelin warrior units. So my levy were really shooting his Hearthguard. I saw that the Hearthguard, even though the Scots have got all those defence dice, I knew the Hearthguard are probably my best option there, because every time I kill one, it's a whole point, whereas every warrior I kill is only half a massacre point. So I was shooting into his Hearthguard a lot of times, lots and lots of times, with everything I could, really. My Roman deserters, if they could as well. So lots of shots into him. He was marching up that slow Scots advance. They're not fast, but they are very defensive. But Ian was a little bit unlucky with his saves, and so gradually, as he was getting close to me, and he attacked one of the objectives in the middle and destroyed it early on. But that left his Hearthguard in a position where I could shoot him a lot with my javelins, and I just really laid into this Hearthguard unit, picked them off one by one, and eventually managed to wipe the whole unit. Still had a lot of strong warrior units coming up, but I could slowly get them to break them down until they'd lost the Saga dice. I used a taunt, I think, to bring one of his warrior units to fight my Roman deserters, so I had the better end of that because I've got better saving throws. And I shot him so many times that even with his hold at bay, he could use hold at bay and his combat bonus to defend, but he couldn't defend all of them because there were too many shots coming this way. And yeah, so bit by bit I took him out, and really what was left is to destroy the objectives, because I hadn't managed to destroy them. I'd had a couple of charges that had failed to destroy them, so it was quite late game that I went in to charge the objectives, and did manage to do it because I had enough dice left to do that, and destroyed objective. And I think I was fairly comfortably ahead on points at the end of that. So again, I was amazed at my result from that, because I wasn't feeling very good about the game, but yeah, managed to take him out and avoid his units, and yeah, take the win. So now this had really turned around my chances in this tournament, because I'm now on 3 wins and 2 draws, and I discover that in the final game I'm playing the top other player. That's Martin, who's been dominating this tournament with his Huns, and he has had a lot of wins. He had 4 wins, and he's the only person who's held him to a draw so far was Gabor with his pagan Rus. I imagine by limiting the charge range and the shooting range, he's managed to stop the movement of those Huns so much, and held him to a draw in the last game. So it's me versus Martin in the last game. Martin is so far ahead on points that even if he draws me, he is going to win the tournament overall. But to realise, if I win, I can now win it. If I beat him, I can now win the tournament. The last game was the new feud. So this is Rog Saga Thursday, his variation on the old feud. A really good change to this scenario, because you have the central hill. So, you've got to have your challenger on the hill. If you don't have your challengers on the hill by the end of the game, then you've lost. The challengers die, basically. So you've got to be on the hill. And normally in the old feud, you'd always try and get hard cover. You'd stick your challenger in there, and they'd be safe once they're in that. So it kind of a little bit of a boring game sometimes. So the new feud, you've got to get your challenger on the hill. And I have to say, this was probably the best scenario for me to play against Martin. If I'd played him in any of the other scenarios, I think he would have crushed me, really, because he was so mobile with those Huns. He was brilliant at his use of fatigue and putting fatigue on my units, really. So it was devastating, really, what he could do in the game. The Hun board is so good, and Martin was a master of it. But the new feud has different terrain placement. It's using the universal terrain placement. And because Martin's going first, he places a unit of terrain, a hard cover for himself. I grab a hard cover myself. He's got to place another one, so he puts a swamp, I think, in my deployment zone to hamper me. So I play another one, a large wood on one side of the hill. Martin chooses not to place anymore. He moves my large wood out of the way to move it away, and I can place another one, and so I place another swamp in his deployment zone. So we end up, of course, with quite a lot of terrain, as well as the hill in the middle. There's 5 pieces of terrain, and I think that really helped me an awful lot, because Martin's Huns normally so mobile. In every other game, they've been able to have free reign to run all over the place with not much terrain stopping them. In this game, there's quite a lot of terrain that's going to hamper his movements quite a bit. There's still, of course, the open hill in the middle. So there's still that means that it's quite open around the centre. So Martin's list for Huns. Let's see. He had his warlord mounted. He had 4 mounted Hearthguard. He had the 8 Roman deserters, just like me. Really good defensive unit. I imagine worked brilliant with Huns, because provides him with a bit of cover to hide his combo warriors behind. He's got a unit of 6 levy with spear and shield, just to generate the Saga dice. Now they're put right at the back in the hard cover. There's no way I'm ever going to touch them. No way I'm ever going to take a Saga dice off them. So the rest of all his points are put into warriors. So he's got, let's see, so that's 3.5 points of warriors there. which he put into 3 units. He had a unit of 10 warriors. They're mounted with composite bows and a banner, and then a unit of 9 warriors mounted with composite bows, and another unit of 9 warriors mounted with composite bows. So those 3 big warrior units, I know they're going to do a lot of the work for him here, and we know how good composite bows can be in Saga. He's got to try and take out my challenger. I've got to try and take out his. He chooses the challenger first, and he chooses the soldier. Really good defensive challenger there. And I chose the counsellor for mine, who's not quite as defensive, but generates a Saga dice and has a We Obey built into him. So naturally, we've both got the Roman deserters as cover for our challenger, and they'd kind of stood on the hill with the Roman deserters in the front and the challenger behind. So no challengers died in this game. No challengers died. Really, and Martin got 1, I think, attack on my challenger, 1 shot, but it wasn't enough to kill him. So it came down to slaughtering points this game. And it was a really hard-fought game and really incredibly close. Amazing game, and quite often the tense games in the Grand Melee I don't enjoy, but I actually really enjoyed this one because I was coming from behind, and it was really entertaining. Really, so many twists and turns. Every little decision mattered as well. All the little decisions, and there were a lot of decisions about when to use fatigue, when to not use fatigue in this. And Martin, of course, had a lot of decisions to do about how to get around the Welsh attacks. And really, I thought that the Welsh board is going to be really good against Huns, because I thought those comp bows, I've got some advantages there, because if he moves in to shoot me with his composite bows, I could use our land to charge him before he fires. I could use guerrilla to shoot at him before he can shoot at me. I could use evade to dodge the shot he does. So all these different abilities are really useful on the Welsh board. So I thought I was going to that's going to give me a good advantage. But I have to say, Martin could see all of that coming. He knew the Welsh board. He knew the tricks the Welsh could do, and really was able to play around them a lot of the time. Not all the time, but a lot of the time. However, I did have one sneaky trick up my sleeve, which I don't think he was expecting. And that was the good old sea wolves. I really knew that sea wolves were going to be powerful in this game, or potentially strong, because he had the first turn, I had the second turn. I knew I'd move the sea wolves up with their move after deployment. Now, the rules of the scenario are that during the first turn, neither player can activate their units more than once. So he wasn't going to shoot me in the first turn, because if he moved up to me, then he can't activate to shoot. So he was keeping a bit of distance. But I could move those sea wolves up using their advanced move before the game starts. And then, start of my turn, I could use taunt to bring his big unit of combo warriors armed with a banner to charge into my sea wolves. Now, he'd of course have more attack dice than me, but he's got a weaker armour. He's got an armour of 3. My armour of sea wolves is 4, and that meant, because his armour was lower than mine, I could get 4 more attack dice. So suddenly my sea wolves have now got 12 attack dice. I loaded up with a combat bonus, more attack dice. So I was rolling 15 attack dice, hitting him on 3s. I'm thinking, right, in the very first turn of the game, I'm going to take out his biggest unit or reduce them to an ineffective number, and really he's going to be chasing the game from that point. So we rolled our dice, and disaster. I can't tell you how many 1s and 2s. It was just a terrible roll from me. So it's just laughable, because rolling 15 attack dice, and really I should have got 10 hits, enough to kill 6 or 7 of his unit of 10. So enough to almost take a Saga dice out, and I hadn't even activated, so I could then follow it with a charge. But it was disaster. Hardly any hits, and he saved most of them. I think he lost 2 from that. He killed more sea wolves than I killed of his combo warriors. So I retreated, and I thought, well, I could follow up with a charge, but he had the Hun ability, let's see, panic. So if I activate to charge him, he can put another fatigue on me. I'm going to come with 2 fatigues. Then he's got the fear with my armour. So fear is our armour, which means that he can get extra defence dice because I've got more fatigue. So I thought, that's useless. I'm going to do nothing. So it was just terrible, that. And then, of course, the sea wolves were left battered with fatigue out in the open. I tried to move my other units up so that I could get some shoots next turn, moved my unit of 9 warriors with javelins, so to give a bit of support to the sea wolves. In his turn, he starts laying the shots, and of course, I'm expecting Huns to shoot and move away with those composite bows, but Martin really is very aggressive with his sons. He's brilliant with them. He's charging in all the time. He's shooting, of course, but he's charging in, laying extra fatigue on me. Then he raises his arm with the fatigue he's just put on, so we end up with equal armor. He gets his bonuses for me having fatigue, so extra attack dice. So really crushing me in the attack. So luckily I could close ranks, I think, with Seawolf, so and get me extra defense dice. That means it's I was able to survive that turn. And I think in turn 2, I had enough Seawolves left. I thought, right, I can really press this advantage, and well, not an advantage, but I can try and go for the attack here. So charge into him, get extra attack dice once again to try and whittle him down, to try and knock out the Saga dice he's generating in this unit. But again, it was not a great roll, and I think I got like 6 hits maybe, so pretty good. But he saved 5 of them, 5 saves out of 6 hits. So again, he did more damage to me, and my Seawolf backed off again. Really embarrassing failure for them when they really should have done well. They were disastrous for me, but it did tie up his units dealing with them, and I could move my other units into position. And also, while I was concentrating on that conflict on the left side of the hill, he didn't have enough dice to move one of his mounted warrior units away on the far right side, and so I had my levy slingers within shooting range of his unit. So I shot and really took out quite a few there. He'd also moved his mounted Hearthguard up a little bit closer so he could do a charge next turn, but they were just within range, shooting range of my Roman deserters. So they threw their shots into them. I gave them a couple of extra dice in the from the combat bonus, managed to take out one of those Hearthguard. So from the shooting, I managed to knock out some of his models. He had to come closer with his units then. So the big unit of mounted warriors on the right side, my levy was shooting them so much in the end I whittled them down. They were not combat effective in the end, and he brought his other unit of combo warriors from the far left corner. They came in, they started doing lots of killing. They would typically charge in and get the extra dice from his different abilities, and then after the combat he'd be shooting me as well with his composite bow. So really doing a lot of damage, to me, really just chipping away at my units. But got javelins. I was able to shoot back, get a couple of charges in here and there. No, late game, you could tell it was quite close. He tried to get his Hearthguard in to do a charge on the councillor, but I think it was just blocked. He just didn't quite have enough room to go for that charge. Charged another unit, and I managed to defend that, I think, and then so in my turn I could shoot and really kill off the rest of those mounted Hearthguard. He did a charge on my unit, and I used another of my units. I used evade to move away, and he shortened my move with evade, so I wasn't going to be escaped. So I realised I wasn't going to get away, and then I had an idea. And instead of evading to run away because I'd shortened move, I moved into the swamp nearby that he'd put on my side. And because his unit was so close enough, they had to still charge. They could already declared that charge, so they charged me in the swamp. So of course I got a fatigue for going in the swamp, but his units mounted charging into a swamp get 2 fatigues for going in that dangerous terrain. So I could use those to raise my armour and survive that conflict of my really warrior unit, which had really been battered, but I managed to survive it and without being wiped out. And of course, Martin was then really stuck in that terrain. It was going to take him extra moves to get away from it. But we're nearly ended the game at this point, and it's taken quite a long time. We're running out of time, so we didn't get time to finish the whole game. But as the second player, I got the last turn, and all I could do there was just really shoot and shoot and shoot as much as I possibly could with all of my units, really shooting away and taking out as many of those mounted warriors which were left kind of vulnerable in shooting range of my javelins, and I managed to take out enough that I really wiped out another of his units, and that really made a big difference at the end, because we counted up the points and we had to count extra carefully. In fact, Andy Lyon, who wasn't playing in the Grand Melee but was watching this game very closely, came to help out with the count to make sure it was all right, because we counted the kill points several times. Both our challengers were still alive, so it's going to come down to kill points. And after the count, I won by 1 point. Could not believe it. It just it felt a bit wrong, to be honest, because it'd been such a tight game, really, and all the scenarios, really, you had to win by at least 3 points to count as a win. But the last scenario is made to really avoid there being tied games, and so even 1 point was enough to get the win. And amazingly, I got that win, which I was just could not believe at the end. Really bad luck from Martin as well. But I felt like I felt like I was unlucky with my Seawolves at the start of the game. Really, they should have done a lot more damage than they did do. So my luck in that going second and just winning by 1 point, I felt was kind of justified, and I'd been chasing this title for such a long time. So I was delighted, really gutted for Martin, really, because I think he came so close. And as I say, in any other scenario, I think he would have beaten me. He'd just beaten loads of different comers, all comers, just one draw before me, I think, and then finally facing me. I'd just taken the win by 1 single point. So it's not the last of Martin's Huns that we've seen. I'm sure he's going to come back stronger than ever, gets better and better with every tournament. But I was delighted to take the win with my Cymry Welsh. Just fantastic. Lots of nice prizes from Gripping Beast for me and for the other players who've done well, and for the best painted and for best sportsman. So the event was really well supported by Gripping Beast, and Lord S was there to hand out the prizes. Second place was actually won by Jed, who brought Scots. So he managed to leapfrog Martin with a win in his last game. To take the second place. Martin was best with the best Age of Invasions force that didn't win, so he got a prize for that as well. So there were lots of prizes handed out. Luckily, we were going home with something there. That's the end of the event. Still can't quite believe it. Winning the Grand Melee for the first time. And Cymry Welsh, just an amazing warband to play. We know that Welsh warband is so strong. It's those 3 activation reaction abilities, Guerrilla, Our Land, and Evade, are so difficult to play against. And as I say, I think in the past they were really tricked opponents, and people were not expecting them. In this event, mostly people knew what to expect of the Welsh. It wasn't like I was getting away with unexpected moments. They knew how to get round Evade, but it cost people extra activations to do it. They've got to move up expecting me to dodge their first charge, and then they go with the second charge. So it's costing them more dice, more activations. And for the Welsh, they can use that to their advantage to really avoid the enemy as much as possible and throw in the javelins. Javelins just so strong. So even in this case with my Seawolves, who were really underperforming, the warrior javelins were so strong. They were redeeming that and really getting me the win in these different games. Or maybe the Seawolves did play their part. As I say earlier on, they drew enemies in. They acted as kind of a bait unit because they were an easier target for the enemy, and that meant that I could respond with lots of pointy sticks coming at the enemy. So there we go. the Grand Melee 2024. Great moment in Saga. Now we look forward to the next event and the next competition. So thank you for listening. Let me know your comments in the below, and hope you enjoyed this report about the Grand Melee. Bye bye now.